I stood frozen at the Walmart checkout, my hands trembling as the security guard's grip tightened around my wrist. The overhead lights felt too bright, too harsh, exposing every mistake I'd made that led me to this moment. Behind me, a line of impatient shoppers whispered and pointed, their phones already out, recording my humiliation for whoever would watch. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," the guard said, his voice flat and professional. Like he'd done this 1,000 times before. Like I was just another shoplifter, another criminal, another nobody. I wanted to scream that this was all a mistake. That the sleek black card in my hand wasn't stolen, that I wasn't a thief. But the words caught in my throat, tangled with the shame burning through my chest. Let me back up. My name is Lily Chen, yes, I know. Ironic given my current situation. And until 3 hours ago, I was just another broke 24-year-old trying to survive in a city that chewed people like me up and spit them out. I worked double shifts at Murphy's Diner, a greasy spoon downtown where the coffee was terrible and the tips were worse. My studio apartment was the size of a closet. My car was held together by duct tape and prayers, and my bank account had exactly $17.32 to my name. That morning started like every other. I woke up at 5 a.m. to the sound of my neighbor's screaming baby through paper-thin walls. The hot water in my building had been broken for a week, so I took another ice-cold shower that left me shivering and resentful. My uniform, a stained pink dress that smelled permanently of French fries, hung on the back of my door like a monument to everything I'd failed to become. I dropped out of college 3 years ago when my mom got sick. Breast cancer, stage 3. The medical bills buried us. Everything we had went to treatments, medications, specialists who promised hope and delivered debt. She died anyway, 6 months ago, and I was still here, still drowning, still trying to figure out how to breathe in a world that felt like it was actively trying to suffocate me. But that day, that terrible, wonderful, life-changing day, something different happened. It was around 2 p.m., right in the dead zone between lunch and dinner rush. I was wiping down tables in the back corner, my mind on autopilot, when this man walked in. And not just any man. This guy was different. Tall, maybe 6'2", wearing a suit that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. Dark hair, styled perfectly. The kind of watch on his wrist that could buy a small house. He looked completely out of place in Murphy's Diner, like a lion who'd wandered into a pet store. He sat in my section. Of course he did. "Coffee, please," he said when I approached, not even looking up from his phone. His voice had this quality to it. Tired, maybe, or just used to being obeyed. I poured his coffee, noted he took it black, watched him barely touch it as he worked on whatever was consuming him on that glowing screen. He stayed for an hour, made 3 phone calls, each one sounding more tense than the last. Something about a merger, a lawsuit, someone named Patterson who was bleeding the company dry. When he finally stood to leave, I brought over his check, $12 for coffee and a slice of pie he hadn't eaten. "Keep the change," he said, pulling out his wallet. That's when I saw them. 3 cards, a Platinum Amex, a Standard Visa, and this other one, matte black. No logo I recognized, just some numbers embossed in silver. The kind of card that whispered wealth so quietly it screamed. He left a $100 bill on the table. I almost cried. $100 meant food for 2 weeks. It meant my electricity staying on. It meant maybe, just maybe, I could afford to fix my car's broken taillight before getting another ticket I couldn't pay. I cleared his table quickly, pocketed the money like it might disappear if I didn't move fast enough. That's when I saw it. The black card, just sitting there, half hidden under a crumpled napkin. My first instinct was to run after him. He'd only been gone maybe 30 seconds. I grabbed the card, rushed to the door, looked both ways down the street. But he was gone, vanished into the anonymous flow of downtown foot traffic like he'd never existed. I stood there, card in hand, feeling its weight. It was heavier than a normal card. Expensive. The kind of thing that represented a life I'd never know. I should have turned it in. Should have given it to my manager. Let him handle it. But I didn't. Instead, I slipped it into my apron pocket and went back to work. I told myself I'd figure out how to return it later. That I'd find a way to track him down. That I was just keeping it safe. I told myself a lot of lies that afternoon. My shift ended at 9 p.m. By then, my feet were killing me, my lower back was screaming, and I'd completely forgotten about the card until I was emptying my apron into my purse. There it was, still black, still mysterious, still representing everything I wasn't. I sat in my car in the diner's parking lot, the engine off because I was trying to save gas, and I stared at that card, really stared at it. The numbers embossed on it were different from normal cards. No name, just a 16-digit number and an expiration date 3 years out. I pulled out my phone, Googled black credit cards. The results were intimidating. Invitation-only cards for people with millions in net worth. Cards that required spending hundreds of thousands annually just to qualify. Cards that came with concierge services, private jet access, and credit limits that were essentially infinite. This wasn't just a card. It was a key to a world I'd never touch. My phone buzzed. A text from my landlord. Rent was due yesterday. Late fee kicks in tomorrow. You know the rules. I did know the rules. $500 for rent. $50 late fee. Money I didn't have. Money I wouldn't have until my next paycheck, which was 10 days away. 10 days too late. I looked at the card again. No, I couldn't. That was insane. That was theft. That was... My stomach growled, reminding me I'd skipped lunch to save money. Reminding me that my fridge at home contained half a jar of peanut butter and some questionable milk. Reminding me that I was so tired, so endlessly, crushingly tired of being broke. Just this once, I thought. Just enough for groceries. I'll find him somehow, pay him back. It's not really stealing if I'm going to return it, right? The rationalizations came easily. Too easily. I drove to Walmart because it was open late, and because I was already so far past the point of good decisions that I might as well go all in. The parking lot was half empty under fluorescent lights that hummed like dying insects. Inside, everything was too bright, too loud, too real. I grabbed a cart. Started simple. Bread, peanut butter, some eggs, milk. Real milk. Not the powdered stuff I'd been mixing with water. My cart felt pathetically empty, so I added more. Chicken, vegetables, rice, things I could stretch into multiple meals, things that would last. Then I saw the clearance rack in the clothing section. My work uniform was falling apart. The hem was coming undone. One of the buttons had been missing for weeks. A new one would be practical. Necessary, even. I found a cheap dress, $16. Added it to the cart. Toothpaste. I needed toothpaste. And maybe shampoo. The travel-sized bottles I'd been using were more expensive per ounce than the full-sized ones. This was just being smart with money. My cart filled slowly. Each item justified. Each purchase rationalized. By the time I headed to checkout, I'd accumulated about $150 worth of stuff. Nothing extravagant. Just normal. The kind of normal shopping trip that normal people with normal lives took for granted. The cashier was young, maybe 19, with bright purple hair and a name tag that said Kristen. She scanned my items with the mechanical efficiency of someone who'd done this 10,000 times before. She didn't look at me. Didn't care. I was just another transaction. Totals $147.62, she said, her voice flat. I pulled out the black card. My hand was shaking slightly. Just slide it, I told myself. It'll work or it won't. If it doesn't work, you'll just say it was a mistake. Pull out your debit card. Put some stuff back. I slid it. The machine beeped. Processing. Those 3 seconds felt like 3 hours. Kristen was looking at her phone now, not even paying attention. The person behind me in line was sighing impatiently. Somewhere overhead, an announcement about a spill in aisle 7 crackled through ancient speakers. The machine beeped again. Approved. My stomach dropped. Need a bag? Kristen asked, already moving to the next customer in her mind. Yes. Please. My voice came out smaller than I intended. I loaded my groceries into bags, trying to move quickly, trying to look normal, like I belonged here. Like this was my card, my money, my life. I almost made it to the door. Excuse me, miss. A man's voice. Deep. Authoritative. I turned. Security guard, the big kind, with arms that suggested he enjoyed his job a little too much. His name tag said Rodriguez. Yes? I tried to smile, tried to look innocent. Can you come with me, please? Just need to verify something about your purchase. My heart stopped. What? Why? Just routine. This way. He gestured toward a door marked Security Office behind me. I heard Kristen talking into a phone. Quiet, but not quiet enough. Yeah, she's the one. Black card. No name on it. Definitely flagged. The world tilted. Everything went sharp and bright and wrong. This was it. This was the moment everything fell apart. Not slowly, like it had been falling apart for years, but catastrophically, completely. The security office was small and windowless, with fluorescent lights that flickered just enough to give me an instant headache. Rodriguez shut the door behind us. Another guard was already there, a woman this time, with short gray hair and the kind of eyes that had seen everything and believed nothing. Have a seat, she said, gesturing to a metal chair that looked like it came from a police interrogation room. I sat. The plastic bags of groceries hung from my wrist, cutting off circulation. I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. Couldn't feel much of anything except the crushing weight of what I'd done. I'm Officer Peters, the woman said. We're going to need to see some ID and that credit card you used. I fumbled for my wallet. My driver's license was bent at the corner. The photo, 3 years old, taken before everything fell apart. I looked so young in it, so hopeful. I wanted to cry looking at that girl who thought life might work out. I handed over my ID and the black card. Peters examined them both under a bright desk lamp, turning the card over multiple times. This card isn't registered to your name, she said. Not a question. An accusation. It's not mine. I found it. At work. I was going to return it, but you decided to use it first? Rodriguez cut in, his arms crossed over his chest. That's called theft, miss. No, I wasn't stealing. I just needed... My voice cracked. The tears I'd been holding back started falling and I couldn't stop them. I was going to pay it back. I was going to find him and explain, and pay back every cent. Find who? The man who left it, at the diner where I work. He sat in my section, and when he left, the card was there and I grabbed it to run after him, but he was already gone, and I was babbling. I knew I was babbling, but I couldn't stop. The words poured out of me like water from a broken pipe, desperate and messy and true. Peters held up a hand. Slow down. What's the name of this person? I don't know. He never said. He just ordered coffee and made phone calls and left $100 tip and... $100 tip? Rodriguez exchanged a look with Peters. For coffee? He was rich. Or he seemed rich. The suit, the watch, everything about him screamed money. That's why when I saw the card I thought maybe it wouldn't matter to him. That he probably has a dozen cards and wouldn't even notice one was missing. That he could afford... I stopped. Heard my own words. Heard how terrible they sounded. How entitled. How pathetic. I'm not a thief, I whispered. I'm not. Peters leaned back in her chair. Here's what's going to happen. We're calling the police. They'll file a report. Depending on the cardholder, they may press charges. Credit card fraud is a felony in this state. You could be looking at prison time. Prison. The word hit me like a physical blow. I thought about my studio apartment, as terrible as it was. My job at Murphy's, my car, my life. It wasn't much. It was barely anything, but it was mine. And now, I was going to lose all of it because I couldn't resist playing pretend for one night. Please, I begged. Please, there has to be something I can do. I'll work it off. I'll pay it back with interest. The door burst open. A man stood in the doorway, breathing hard like he'd been running. Expensive suit, dark hair, familiar face. It was him, the man from the diner. Stop, he said, his voice commanding the room instantly. Don't call anyone. That's my card. I gave it to her. Silence. Complete, total silence. Peters stood. Sir, this woman claims she found your card, that you left it at a restaurant, and I know what she claims. He stepped into the room, and somehow it felt smaller with him in it. He looked at me for the first time since the diner. Really looked at me. And I saw something in his eyes I couldn't quite place. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. But that's not what happened. I gave her the card intentionally, to test her. To test her? Rodriguez sounded as confused as I felt. The man pulled out another card, identical to the one Peters was holding. I run several charitable foundations. We're always looking for people who genuinely need help, people who are struggling but still trying. I left that card with Lily as a test, to see what she would do with it. My mouth fell open. You? What? He ignored me, focusing on the security guards. She passed. I've been tracking the card's usage. Groceries, basics, nothing extravagant. She took only what she needed to survive. That's exactly the kind of person we look for in our assistance program. This was insane. This was the most insane thing I'd ever heard. But Peters and Rodriguez were nodding, like it made perfect sense. Like rich people running elaborate social experiments on desperate waitresses was totally normal. I'd like to take her with me now, the man continued. We have paperwork to fill out, program details to discuss. Unless there's a problem? Peters handed back the card. No problem at all, Mr. Whitmore. Alexander Whitmore. The name meant nothing to me, but the way Peters's eyes widened suggested it should have. She practically stumbled over herself to apologize, to assure Mr. Whitmore that they were just doing their jobs, that they meant no disrespect. 5 minutes later, I was walking out of Walmart with my groceries and my pride in tatters, following this stranger. This billionaire who apparently knew my name without me ever telling him, to a car that probably cost more than my life. Get in, he said, opening the passenger door of a sleek black Mercedes. We need to talk. I should have run, should have demanded answers, should have done anything except climb into that car with a man I didn't know and a situation I didn't understand. But I was so tired. So impossibly tired. And for the first time in years, someone was offering me something that looked like hope. So I got in. The door closed behind me with a solid, expensive sound. Alexander Whitmore slid into the driver's seat, started the engine. It purred like a content cat and pulled out of the parking lot without a word. We drove in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only 10 minutes. My mind raced with questions I was too afraid to ask. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. What do you want from me? He glanced over, his expression unreadable in the dim light of passing street lamps. What makes you think I want anything? Because people like you don't help people like me out of kindness. There's always a catch. Always something you want in return. A small smile played at his lips. Smart. You're right. There is something I want. My stomach clenched. What? He pulled into a parking garage attached to a glass building that stretched toward the sky like a monument to ambition. I want you to work for me. As what? A waitress in some fancy restaurant you own? A maid in one of your houses? The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. No. He turned off the car, faced me fully. As my assistant. My previous one quit last week. Family emergency in Taiwan. I need someone smart, resourceful, and desperate enough to take a risk on a stranger's credit card. Congratulations, Lily Chen. You're exactly what I've been looking for. You're insane, probably. But I'm also serious. $50,000 a year starting salary, health insurance, dental, 2 weeks paid vacation. And before you ask, yes, it's legitimate. Yes, you'll actually be doing assistant work, not whatever terrible thing your imagination is conjuring. And yes, you can walk away right now if you want. But we both know you won't. He was right. God help me. He was right. Because $50,000 a year was more than I'd made in the last 2 years combined. Because health insurance meant I could finally see a doctor about the persistent cough I'd been ignoring. Because 2 weeks vacation sounded like a fantasy from another life. Why me? I whispered. Alexander Whitmore looked at me with those calculating eyes and said, because you're drowning, and I know what that feels like. I used to be where you are. Before the money, before the companies, before any of this, I was broke and desperate, and making terrible decisions just to survive. Someone gave me a chance once. I'm returning the favor. He extended his hand. So what do you say, Lily? Want to stop drowning? I looked at his hand, at his face, at the future he was offering on a silver platter. I thought about my studio apartment with the broken hot water, my stained uniform, my $17.32, my mother's medical debt that would follow me forever, the endless, crushing weight of being poor in a world that punished poverty like a crime. I took his hand. Yes, his grip was firm, confident, certain. The handshake of someone who always got what they wanted. Good. You start Monday. And Lily? He released my hand. Just so we're clear, that card you used, keep it. Consider it a signing bonus. Buy yourself some clothes that actually fit. You're going to need them. I stared at the black card in my purse, then back at him. This is real? All of this is actually real? As real as it gets. Welcome to your new life, Lily Chen. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So I did both. Sitting in a stranger's Mercedes in a parking garage I couldn't afford to park in, I laughed and cried and felt something I hadn't felt in so long I'd almost forgotten what it was called. Hope, the kind that might actually last.